And also when you mentioned 80,000 stations around the country, each one of them will be producing hydrogen, correct?
Well, they'll be a part of the distribution system. But those 80,000 buildings are just for people to get on and off the system.
Okay, but
and they're big. They're you know, they might have 3 or 4 businesses in them or more.
right.
And that means, you know, several hundred jobs per station.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking of is one of the problems we have with an alternative fuel for to gasoline right now is there are 170,000 gasoline stations in the country.
Yes.
And when you talk about infrastructure development, it's got to be so convenient that people don't even give it a second thought as to how this replaced gasoline. Well, and to have, I mean, I'm not trying to create a market for you, but
well, that is our market, right? So you understand that this pipeline connects all those gas stations together.
Okay, so they would be producing hydrogen for the existing gas stations.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yeah. Okay,
so then it's just a matter of regulations and the proper pumping equipment to get it set.
Right, exactly.
So
the larger pipelines are all low pressure hydrogen, and that would be, you know, possibly 4 foot in diameter. So we have, when you run it down the highway on both sides, you end up with basically 3 or 4 foot diameter pipes that are filled with low pressure hydrogen gas, and that is distributed to every gas station along the interstate highway. The traveler stations are put where people are. But there's a lot of highway entrances and exits that have gas stations but no hotels or anything.
Sure.
So it may not be financially prudent to build a large traveler station there, but we can certainly run our pipeline over so that they can get natural gas, hydrogen gas, or even liquid-based petroleum products can all be run through this pipeline system.
Okay, and then how long do you actually think this might take to, I mean, in our work up to actually starting to flip camera over there, we talked for probably about an hour as to all the things you've been doing, and it's very impressive. There's a couple of notices here on the wall, state of Michigan resolutions to support Justin and his company. Did you have a time frame for this? I mean, is it like, do you see this with the proper support to be maybe 10 years from now we'll see a system like this running around, at least between major cities?
Sure. Well, we've been prepared to go into mass production since about 2004, but it's a political problem to build public infrastructure. We're a commercial organization, and we're set up to actually do a public-private partnership with the government, which is normal. There's a lot of companies that do this to build bridges and toll roads and things like that. So we are offering a public-private partnership that pays a revenue share, not just to the state government, but it's fixed in a contract that pays to the federal, the state, the counties, and the local governments. And we've expanded it this year to include a grant type of a fund for hospitals or medical, historical, which is libraries and museums, educational, which is all, and then recreational, which is all of our parks and stuff. And you know, any city you look around, and you can only wish that the parks had the lawns cut and the garbage cans emptied. So this public infrastructure system is set up to be the revenue supply for all of those things, which will hopefully help mitigate the property tax issues to fund municipalities. So that is a political problem. Now we've been working through the Michigan legislature since 2003 when these resolutions were passed. We've also been working in other states and in other countries. So we've got essentially pending orders in many different countries, and you can go to our website and even watch a news report from about 11 months ago where there was a fund, a $3 billion fund put together to build this in Indonesia. And it's on national news in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. You can go to our website and watch that. We've presented it officially to many countries. So, but this requires a whole new paradigm shift in Detroit. And because of that, we have accumulated more than several dozen automotive supplying companies.
To build cars and the rail.
Right, so the large vehicle bodies, those will be built by anybody that can build large vehicle bodies. That's your Ford, GM, Chrysler, Boeing, Lockheed, Airbus.
Sure.
You know, the European stuff that we're doing has a whole new side of things in Europe with all the major suppliers in Europe. But here in America, the people that already build large things, like airplanes and cars and trucks and buses, will all have these. It's a public infrastructure network, so there's public access. So you could own, anybody watching this video could end up possibly owning one of these vehicles made in America.
There will be private ownership as well.
Yes, on the public right-of-way, because it's public, the public has access to it. So as the system starts out, there will be more publicly owned vehicles which are managed under the public-private partnership. And that's like the modern Greyhound bus, if you will. There will still be Greyhound buses, and we'll actually help feed them, people through our 211 Dial-A-Ride program, which United Way is supporting with their, urban assistance programs.
I would imagine private ownership, though, would be maybe something along the lines of if you lived on a small airport where everybody owns their own airplane and they share a runway kind of thing. Is that what you kind of have in mind? I mean, I could imagine.
Yeah, well, this infrastructure, the automation, growing up in Detroit, being an engineering student, and my first years at junior college were with factory automation, process control, and robotics for mass production. And today, you can have a factory that produces 200 cars a day, not a problem, 500 cars a day. And a car has got anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 unique parts. Well, this rail system has got one plate over the top, one plate here, one there, one there, one there. There are 5 major steel plates and then some tubes. This is so incredibly simple in comparing to building an automobile that we can very easily output 200 sections a day. They're 80 feet long. That's 16,000 lineal feet a day per factory. And those 16,000 lineal feet essentially comprise roughly 3 miles a day of rail that can be produced. And in 100 days, that's 300 miles of rail. So when you have that type of a mass production scenario set up,
capacity.
Yeah, we're talking about building Detroit to Chicago in a year or two. So it's just a question of when the government is ready to let this thing happen. And once the contracts are signed, everything will start to flow. And we already have commitments for funding, 100%. We don't want any tax dollars. We don't want any tax abatements. We don't want any tax subsidies. None of that. This is a commercial organization that's paying 50% revenue share and dividing it amongst all the municipalities statewide. So that's the only way to enable something so large to be funded.
Thomas, you're back.
Thomas is back.
Now, how often do you think these will be actually running on the track at one time? Well, say between Detroit and Chicago.
Yeah, we figure as a base number 3 cars per mile, 3 transports per mile. So it could be not necessarily the equestrian Explorer, but something that passengers would be riding.
Cargo.
Yeah, like a 100-passenger vehicle. So let's use Detroit to Ann Arbor as an example, because we've done that. We've got the proposals, the route maps, everything's been done for a long time. That system has about 100 miles of rail encompassed in it. There's 2 major loops around Detroit, and 1 loop all the way around Ann Arbor, and it connects Detroit City Airport, Detroit Metro Airport, Willow Run Airport, Ann Arbor City Airport, all the hospitals and universities in that route. They're all connected with the system. There are 42 highway interchanges along that route. Those 42 highway interchanges have 2 of these traveler stations in them, some larger, some smaller. But that's 84 new traveler stations that will be built on the Detroit to Ann Arbor system. That will also support about 300 of our vehicles. So that's got a 30,000 passenger capacity. And that's available 24/7 on demand.
Okay.
So in that particular scenario, you've got a capacity of 30,000 people at any one time riding it. But if we mix in some private ownership, let's say each of the universities have their own vehicle. Each of the airports have a fleet of vehicles. So that if you want to go to the airport, you dial 211, a car picks you up at your front door, takes you to the traveler station.
An Interstate Traveler car.
Yes, or a county car, or a private taxi.
Yeah, a private taxi.
Yeah, that's right. We'll pay anybody who is authorized to operate a taxi, limousine, or bus service. That's, it's in our best interest to do so. And the 211 program, which if you haven't heard of it, is a very important thing. We all know 911 for an emergency, or 411 to get information on your cell phone. Well, 211 is the new community access number. It's being standardized by the United Way as a way for people to call for help. So that if the gas company shuts off your gas, or you've fallen and you can't get up or whatever, not such extreme, pardon me, but the 211 system enables us to give people a portal to call for a ride. Because as the baby boomers are now hitting a point where a lot of them are not going to qualify for a driver's license because they can't see well, This enables this next generation of people to have access to transportation just by dialing 211 on a phone. And you don't have to be the one calling. You know, you can call for a friend. So we support that.
Yeah.
And that means jobs across the board. But to get to back to the point about owning one of these things, the Detroit-Ann Arbor system is relatively small. 54,000 miles of interstate highway in the United States is relatively large. So in that rail network, there's going to be side tracks going into private sub-networks that go off into freight zones, port authorities for shipping containers. There will be factories that will have direct sidelines, just like railroads right now today go right into a factory to deliver products. Railroad trains literally go inside the building of a giant factory to unload and load products. Mm-hmm. You know, you're out of the rain. We can do the same thing. So we've been working with the International Port Police and all these different groups that are concerned about port security, port maintenance, port efficiency. And we attend a lot of these meetings, and we have several proposals out, including working with the group in the Baja Peninsula, where Port of Long Beach, Port of Los Angeles, and Alameda are working with the Mexican authorities to build a new seaport. Mm-hmm. So, you know, but that's happening there. We're working on other places around the world where they just need better transportation, more reliable. The thing is weatherproof, essentially,
yeah,
and it generates its own power. Mm-hmm. So wherever we go, we bring transportation, information, and water and sewage mitigation to boot.